Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hello, I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Liz Esten.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Liz to like musical theater. How are we doing today, kids?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk about Elton John, who's my favorite artist.
Yeah. Also, it's also Saturday night, y'all. What are we doing?
Well, it's all right for fighting, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Saturday night's all right for fighting. Saturday night's all right.
As long as you have a
that's
date.
what we're talking about, right?
You know what? I'm done.
Andrew ruined
Just like,
it.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Literally, this entire show, the premise of this show is every Saturday night they just sit on a porch. Yep. That is the structure that this show is working off of. And we decided not to lean into that and just make Elton John references.
What's wrong with that?
I guess nothing.
We're recording this on a Wednesday.
Yeah, this is a Wednesday. This isn't a Saturday.
You know what? That's about right for this show. Guys, it is our second to last Sondheim we'll ever do on this show because the man's dead now. And for that, honestly, this is kind of poetic if you think about it, because our second to last Sondheim is the first thing he ever wrote professionally, and the last Sondheim is the last thing he wrote professionally. And his first show never hit Broadway, and his last show will likely never hit Broadway. So I think they are of a piece together, and they're also connected by the fact that we're gonna have to fucking do some work to Google the fucking plot and figure it out and mystery piecemeal this together to be able to understand what the fuck's going on.
Jess has a conspiracy wall behind him.
Yeah,
It's the Saturday night wall.
to the holy text for this one. And they never made an ebook version of this, so there's no online resource that has this doubled, so I have to actually physically look through the book.
Every time we've done Sondheim episodes with finishing the hat quotes, Jess types them in the document with his own hands.
Yeah, so this week, in case you haven't picked up or thrown down, we are covering Sondheim's very first professional musical. Don't come at me with, oh yeah, he wrote it by George. Are you ever going to cover it by George? No, we're not going to cover it by George. He wrote that in high school, and even he admits it's terrible. And the only reason why we know anything about it is because he released like barely anything. We're not covering that. It doesn't count. This week we're covering Saturday Night. Cue the music.
Like a 1,000,000-watt electric light, it shines up the city as it climbs. And I gotta spend another Saturday night at home with the Sunday Times.
Moonlight on Flatbush Avenue, that's what I call a lovely view.
So Saturday Night is a musical written by Juliet J. Epstein with music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim at the age of 22. Based on Front Porch in Flatbush by Juliet J. Epstein and Philip G. Epstein. The first professional musical written by Stephen Sondheim, Saturday Night, was intended to open on Broadway in 1955. However, after the sudden death of its lead producer, the show was shelved for 40 years. Sondheim then went on to make his professional premiere in 1957 as the lyricist for West Side Story. What a pivot. Following a student production, Saturday Night was staged at the Bridewell Theatre in London in 1997, and then in Chicago in 1999, and off-Broadway in 2000. The musical also ran in the West End in 2009. Saturday Night tells the unassuming story of a group of Brooklyn boys trying to make good in the stock market in 1929. Unfortunately, one of them, Gene, is so eager to climb the social ladder and impress his sweetheart that he invests his friend's money into a swank apartment near the Brooklyn Bridge, even going as far to sell the gang's precious automobile. And really, that's about it. It's a classic musical in the early days of musical theater, very much in the brand of Rodgers and Hammerstein, and it's obvious that's what Sondheim is aping here and just trying to make that work. Andrew, what did you think of Saturday Night?
It exists. It's one of the Broadway shows of all time.
Not Broadway. Never made it to Broadway.
It's one of the Sondheim shows of all time. I have very, very little strong opinions about this. It feels like Sondheim's before Sondheim, which I guess it is, but it's like he's just doing music theater with no twists, with no edge, with nothing else. It's just he's just doing music theater, it feels like. And I don't think that's what people like Sondheim for, and that's not really what I liked Sondheim for. But here it is.
There's an interesting quote in his memoirs, basically finishing the hat, where he's describing performing this for another composer called Arlen, where he's really trying to show off. And I think it sums up the show pretty well to me, where he was really just playing the music, impressing everyone, and he comes up to Sondheim and he said, "Don't be afraid to not write a blockbuster." And I think that sums up what this show is. Sondheim trying to bring his best, most effective, pow to the back of the room effort to every song, where every song feels like the 11 o'clock number, which means they all kind of blur together. And what really solidifies a Sondheim musical for us really didn't come until Anyone Can Whistle, with the big numbers where it's like, holy shit. There's only one holy shit number for me, and it's a ballad. And that's it.
It's interesting that this even ever came back. And I feel like the only reason it really did was because it has Sondheim's name on it. Maybe that's not true, but...
See, agree and disagree. So, I think a lot of the reason why this came back, the play itself is fairly well known. The original play that Sondheim based it on, which there's an interesting story on how he got the rights and ability to do that. But the Front Porch in Flatbush is a well-known show. So the fact that Sondheim adapted a well-known show is pretty notable, and that no one really got to see it. And as well, a lot of these songs did show up in reviews, such as Marry Me a Little and Putting It Together inside. So these songs, in and of themselves, did become fan favorites. So, things like So Many People and...
It's eventually we have to actually show the whole thing.
Yes, kind of. And Sondheim was asked, does he want to change anything? And he said, no, it's baby photos, and you don't really adjust baby pictures. Which is a very kind of... I think it's the better way to do it. And I think he agrees that this is much more interesting as a fossil, as something that we kind of look back at as a novelty rather than a proper show. And I wonder if it did have its original Broadway premiere, if Stephen Sondheim would be the man that we know today.
Yeah, because, how would this show have actually done if it was debuted in 1955? And he wasn't originally the West Side Story guy, he was the Saturday Night guy.
But Saturday Night, the songs that he wrote for this is how he got West Side Story. Having these songs ready to prepare and perform and show out of circulation of the show itself gets him a lot of work.
But that could also just be a thing you did in college so you can get a better job. It's oh, you have potential. Sure, it's potential, but is it a great show if you put it all together in that time period specifically?
It's interesting thought, but
yeah.
We will never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is the plot of Saturday Night, Andrew? I know you really looked into this, and it's really, really effective.
There's a bunch of characters, a bunch of bros. They love hanging out on their porch on Saturday night, but they're tired of hanging out on their porch on Saturday night. They want to do something, I think they want to meet a girl. I would assume that that's their motivation. At least some of their motivation.
I think their motivation is to get rich. And they just kind of want to get dates as well while also being rich.
Well, I think part of it is they go out and they try to get dates and they pretend they're rich, but then they want to actually be rich.
Yeah.
So they try to get rich quick. And one of their friends or one of the people they meet, I don't know if it's one of their friends, they meet somebody and he tries to sell them on this stock.
Oh, it's one of their friends. It's one of their friends. Yeah.
Okay, so one of their friends is yo, we should all buy this stock. It's great, a great investment. It flops. It's a terrible stock, and it just goes terribly. And so now they're broke, and somebody, I think, has to like steal a car or something. I don't remember.
No, he sells his cousin's car
Yeah.
to pay.
Sells his cousin's car
to pay for the lease for a fancy apartment for his new girlfriend because he said he was rich.
Because he still wants to be rich. Yeah.
He said he was rich.
But then he's gonna get in trouble, but he ends up not getting in trouble, and then the show ends.
And they live happily ever after because the
Kind of.
girlfriend, forgives him
Somehow.
and so on. And
Girlfriend
so on.
for gore.
I forgot.
Pretty good summation. I'm compelled by this show because it's something that Sondheim never really did aside from his first couple shows, which is write about young people as a young person. He was in his 20s at the time, writing about people in their 20s and the struggles, and from that point of view. And you see a lot of things that we wouldn't see later, like being impressive just for the sake of being impressive, and a lot of lyrical fanciness for the sake of lyrical fanciness, and his self-proclaimed sins as a songwriter, such as things that I love, like as I said, So Many People is one of my favorite Sondheim songs ever written. And he says, the phrase doesn't work and it feels like incomplete thought. And I'm like, yes, but that's what makes it beautiful. Like, specifically the line, I could have done for so much less than what I had planned in all the magazines. He's like, that feels like a complete thought to start with. And it's wrong because she stops. And I'm like, no, that's what makes it pretty. So it's a man not understanding the value of his own work in the time, in the context. And it's removed. And if you're actually reading the Finishing the Hat book, you can see his handwriting was much better in his 20s than they are in his 70s.
I think that's just life. So.
I think it's always difficult as any sort of artist or anything to look at your own early work and be actually appreciative of it and not embarrassed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a process, I think. Like, at first, 10 years. You look back at something you made 10 years ago. Ooh, really cringe. 20 years ago, oh, look at that kid. 70 to 80 years ago, 40 years ago, then it's like, oh my God, what was I doing? Like, what ambition I had.
Yeah.
Why would I even try this? But does any of it work? Is any of it effective to you guys?
I don't think it's ineffective. It's just, it doesn't have that Sondheim like edge, in my opinion. It doesn't have anything to say about society that I find interesting that you're not getting from something else.
It's like when you listen to it, it's enjoyable. It's like, okay, this is perfectly pleasant. And then like you're done and it doesn't sit. It's like, oh, that was good, but it doesn't like make you think like some other shows might, like about just general life shit. It's like, this is perfectly fine, but it's not like groundbreaking in any way, there's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to not make groundbreaking work, especially when you're 22 years old, but like pass through one ear out the other at a certain point.
And also, this art form was so new at the time.
Yeah.
Like, 1954, Oklahoma was only 10 years ago. This art form existed only 10 years, really. So,
yeah,
the man that's going to change it there should be no expectation for him to change it right away.
Yeah.
No,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
it's not that I have expectations for it. It's that this is just a normal musical.
Yeah.
It's not, if you go into this thinking like this is where Sondheim changed everything.
No.
He jumped on the scene and oh my God, music theater was born. It's just like, no.
This is
just he's just aping like Rodgers and Hammerstein type stuff.
To his own admission.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's not doing it like better than them or anything like that. He's just kind of doing
this
it.
This is the project you make your first semester of college just to like kind of like get the creative juices flowing, and then you figure out what you want to do with your own vision of things.
But that being said, there's some fascinating pieces that would come, much later. Like, you can see where he's going later from this early days. Now, here's where it struggles. The character work and all this other stuff in this play. So Sondheim reached out to the playwright directly with his music in a binder, more or less, and said, "Hey, can I adapt your play, please? Here's some of the songs." And then the Epstein just basically sent him back with a signed license saying, "Yeah, go ahead," and charged only $2, I believe. And Sondheim,
What year was this?
This was 1954.
I want to see what $2 is in 19.
And Sondheim even claims, like, yeah, that was big money to me back then. And he was a little upset, like, I guess he kept the binder because I didn't get that back.
But he wrote the fucking play.
Well, he had his songs in it.
Oh, he couldn't get his songs back?
Yeah, so
That was his only copy?
Also, $2 in 1954 was like $23.30 now.
That's still like nothing.
It's
but okay.
nothing.
it's still, well, if you're a kid and all that, like, remember, fresh out of college boy.
Things were just... There is, I think, something to the fact that things were maybe kind of better back then in some senses. Like, I don't think you could just mail a binder to a writer nowadays and be like, "Can I buy your work?"
Yeah,
I don't think that would happen. That wouldn't work. You'd have to go through some like ridiculous official channels and jump through 8 million hoops, and you'd have to have your own representation and a lawyer and like.
Also, it would take like 2 seconds, take like months and months of back and forth of negotiating contracts.
Yeah, it would cost you like $1 billion or something.
Yeah.
There's something about the ability to just everything's just so laid back and it's just so slow.
Sure, adapt my work. I don't care.
I think phones and the internet ruined it, but yeah, that's a fun story though.
Yeah, it is fun.
And it just goes like, because Sondheim, this story's been heard to death, but you know what? We're wrapping up this show. In case you haven't noticed, we've only got like 3 episodes left of our show as possible. We got this one, another one, and then Here We Are, which is the last Sondheim, which is what excites me so much about this is because this is like the antithesis to Here We Are, which I'm so excited for you to listen to and dive into and really analyze. Because this is so straightforward, and it's his first piece. And Here We Are is his most avant-garde, the most, like, too much knives. Where this is too much cake, that is too much knives. Like, one is the hope of a young man looking forward to a bright future, and the other is the bitter anger for what this art form eventually became.
Damn.
Did he finish it, like, right before he died, or was it finished for a hot minute?
That is a good question.
Okay.
Because it is debated.
Okay.
Sondheim did live through, like, from the start of music theater all the way up to essentially now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when we're recording this, he's been dead for like
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. So really not that long. So he lived through a lot. And what did he saw music theater go from Oklahoma to movie adaptations nonstop,
booth.
you know?
And that's what Here We Are is about as a musical, is his response to modern musical theater and his strange takes on it, which is why this optimism feels so strange to me. And to answer your question, Liz, did he finish it? They claim, the folks that are still around, David Ives and all that, claim, this was finished. Like, we always intended for Act 2 to have no songs.
Oh! Okay, so it wasn't done when he died. All right.
Well, they say, no, that was the choice we made.
I don't believe that. That's bullshit.
Because the music died.
Yeah, the music died when he died.
It is a part of the story that the music dies and no one sings anymore. Like, they do incorporate it into to the narrative. It is very strange and avant-garde. This is just me personally prepping you guys for what we're gonna have to do next time, which is you guys are gonna have to actually really think and read and look at the book and look at the structure and come up with opinions, because I've listened to this 45 times and I think my take is interesting, but I don't know if you guys will agree with it. Get hyped for our Here We Are finale, guys.
Here we are.
I feel so much pressure now. My God.
Imagine how every critic in the world felt
That's
when
true.
watching that once.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we're honestly gonna do that, and then immediately afterwards put out Kick-Assia.
Yeah.
Which is really Doug
then-
Walker's Here We
And then
Are,
the
if you
episode
think about
after
it.
that is just like, what a transition.
I mean, Sondheim has been our one really boon. Every time we have something going on with, every time we knew that we were going to deal with something rough, I always knew there was going to be another Sondheim to look forward to. And now we no longer have that. There was so, like the frogs. We always had the frogs that was coming. And then we did that. And then we had Forum, and we've done that. And it's really sad that we're wrapping up this now. And we're kind of covering all of them. And yeah, we're not doing the reviews. We're not doing Marry Me a Little because, all right, let's do a mini corner on that because obviously not much to talk about it Saturday night. Marry Me a Little is a review of songs that were cut from other Sondheim shows, tied together to kind of make a plot.
Uh-huh. So it's like a review.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's two Marry Me Littles. Like, what's the other? The other one is Jason Tam and some lady.
They're still the same, but they
Okay.
added new songs that he had written.
Okay. Because that's confusing.
So
I
he
look at Marry
just
Me Little, I
keeps-
got 2 albums.
Yeah.
He keeps adding his trash. He's like, this is my waste bucket.
But the problem is his trash is so fucking good. Like, so if you look at this, Marry Me a Little starts with Saturday Night from the musical Saturday Night, has a bunch of songs cut from Follies and Little Night Music, including a few that were cut from Forum, but a lot of them are from Saturday Night.
That's interesting.
Well, at the time, did he consider Saturday Night the entire thing to be thrown away,
Yes,
essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
So he could just he could take whatever song he wanted from that and put it into this.
Yeah.
Yes. And the plot of Marry Me a Little is basically two people in separate New York apartments, knowing each other's existence and building up the courage to talk to one another through songs. And would include things that I don't even know why people would consider it cut. Like, If You Can Find Me, I'm Here from Evening Primrose. Did he throw that one out the window? And Rainbows from an aborted film version of Into the Woods.
Wait, from isn't that in Evening Primrose?
Yes, it is.
So that's not even cut.
Yeah.
No.
That's just a song that
But
he
some of these
used.
songs are cut and some of these songs aren't cut. Like, that's what confuses me.
Well, and then I guess then again, any song from Saturday Night is now actually.
I guess
was
that's just a
used
cut
because-
song in his brain.
Yes. So this was just kind of I don't even know how much he had involved. I think this was like directors pulling it together like, we could tell a story with this. And he's like, okay, that's neat. Do it. I like the albums. I think it's a smart idea. But what's the point? See, this is where I'm going to sound really anti-theater, where it's like, you can't just hobble together a bunch of trashed ideas and songs and call it a show, guys.
Well, it's them calling it a musical or anything like that is definitely disingenuous.
But people do
if
put
it's
on
just
this
like a
show
concert,
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like they put it on, throw together the narrative, have stage narrative. Like during COVID, there was a stage version of this that people paid money to see.
if you're expecting like a real musical, I could see that being a little shady, but it might maybe as like a community theater thing, it might be the cheapest Sondheim to get, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, I think it's a fantastic album. I listened to the Jason Tam album a lot. Specifically, it's a good way to hear songs that I do love, like Happily Ever After, the alternate version of Being Alive, I think is a great number and really, really works.
Lonely, but fly. Why not fly with no one to hold you too close, no one to hurt you too deep, no one to love you too hard. Happily ever after. No one you have to know well, no one you have to show how, no one you have to allow the things you'd never allow. That's happily ever after, ever, ever, ever
exactly. But calling it its own musical is wild, which is why, like, if we did do an episode on Marry Me a Little, what would it be?
Well, we could edit together clips of our episodes that I cut previously and just put them all together.
What? Okay, Marry Me a Little. You know, Andrew, there are full episodes of Musicals with Cheese that never made it public because we just knew we had to do better. Like, we have an alternate Godspell episode. We have an alternate Into the Woods episode. There are alternate episodes of Musicals with Cheese that we could
And
release.
they're all terrible. They're all much worse than the ones that we actually released.
See, I can't even say that for these because I think these are great songs still.
Well, you could also do the cut bits from our episodes that would get us canceled.
10 out of 10. Great idea, Andrew. Everything great. So Saturday Night did get good reviews. I do want to read a little bit of Peter Marks' review from June of 1999. his oh yeah, previews. There's only so many times we can do that. It's time for previews, kids.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
So this theater review says, early notes by young, still undiscovered Sondheim. For Sondheim groupies, the in-place to be these days is the utilitarian theater on a campus of a little-known college for a nondescript Chicago neighborhood. That is where Saturday Night, a 45-year-old musical with a book by an author of Casablanca and a thoroughly enchanting score by a young man who is yet to make his mark on musical theater, is having an understated and long overdue American debut. If for no other reason than the representative of 25-year-old Stephen Sondheim's first stab at full-blown commercial musical, Saturday Night would be worth the trip to the Truman College, and this production by Pegasus Players, the tiny Chicago troupe in which Mr. Sondheim entrusted the material and for which he has written 2 new songs. Blessedly, though, the show is no mere peek at messy fraying pages that Mr. Sondheim... mere fraying pages from Mr. Sondheim's discarded pile. Saturday Night is a musical comedy, beguiling innocence that hints at a composer's promise in every downy, smooth, and stylish number. Like, they are being ultra generous to this college production, basically. An evening with Sondheim at the Brooklyn Nights in Chicago leaves one issue unresolved. Why Saturday Night is not yet being produced in the city that inspired it. It later would be, but I think they're overstating this show's importance.
It feels like they're giving it more attention than it really deserves just because it's Sondheim, but I won't deny that it is interesting because it's Sondheim.
Yeah.
Like, if this was just Saturday Night by Joe Smith, and this was his show that he wrote, and it was exactly the same, we'd probably be like, it was pretty good, and probably never speak of it ever again.
Yeah.
But because it's Sondheim.
But you do bring all that stuff in with you, and like it or not, this has one of my favorite Sondheim ballads of all time, so that, in and of itself, makes it worth listening to.
Yeah, and no, I mean, the songs are, for the most part, pretty well written.
Yeah.
All right, how about we go into a mid-show and then talk about those songs?
Sounds good to me.
Do
You sure
it.
you don't want to, invest in stock first or something, though?
I also have my cousin's car.
Can you sell it for me? We gotta buy a stock.
Only if we fall in love immediately.
Oh God, no.
All right, mid-show! Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a show to you. Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon, and at Patreon you get cool things like our Discord access where we share a lot of bootlegs. We will also get some really, really neat access to our commentaries, video episodes, uncut episodes, and things no one's ever seen. Alternate episodes, as we mentioned in the podcast, where they are only in existence there. Our discard pile. But Andrew, who's currently supporting us over on Patreon?
Oh, man. We have a shit ton of people over on Patreon, and I'm going to read them all off. Our current patrons are...
Clippity clappity.
Flippity clap.
Danielle Renix, Jess the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Monica Thoreau, Brent Black, Nathaniel Stacey Coombe, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Scoot in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, John Vanals, Thesbian, Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Chris Marcotte, Kiji Marie Anastasio, Trevi Joseph, RJ Noriga, Julie McLannan, Joe, Bjorn Hermans, Toriana Frazier, Sammy the Adequate Amount Jacobson, Kaylee Blazier, Villainous Miss, Sofina Ali, the Omega Geek, Paige Pearson, Maddie Wargle, Eliza Erdman, Anna Loskatova, Sarah Den Blaker, Evan Ball, Zachary Torres, Rora Marasso, Mara, Lisa L, Possessed Washing Machine, Nick Roten, Puffy Boy, Sydney Hicks, Annabelle, Billy Clifton, Gold Plated Kikimora, Aria Artie, Emma, Carabalda, JRL Studios, Catherine Shawcross, Z Botello, Alexandra Dom, and Gwen Bowman.
They give us some moolah that we can invest in the stock market and hopefully get a profit on. JK.
It's going up, baby. It's going up. Everything's going up.
It's going to be fine,
Investing in Bitcoin. Oh, is this musical the Bitcoin Bros OG?
It kind of, like, there is actually there's quite a few numbers about that. We could talk about that.
Yeah,
more
we'll
in
get to that
after
to the
show.
song.
Yeah, sorry, that just hit me right then. Like, Bitcoin. Let's talk about the opening number, Saturday Night.
Hey, Dino, easy, will you? She's coming to the phone. Hello, Marie. I don't know if you remember me, but we met last week.
If she remembers him, we're sunk.
He's gonna get the axe from her. What would you say to seeing a picture?
I pass.
How does a combination of Johnny Mac Brown and Bessie Love hit ya?
Right between the eyes. Well,
She said I had one hell of a nerve calling her at 7 o'clock on Saturday night. She said naturally she already has a date.
The moon's like a 1,000,000-watt electric light. It shines up the city as it climbs. And I gotta spend another Saturday night at home with the Sunday Times.
I love this, and I really like that ragtime bum 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 bum. Like, I love it. I think it sounds great, and it's like it evokes the time of the 20s so beautifully, and it kind of sets the tone pretty well. What did you guys think?
The only thing that I don't really love is, I guess, listening to it. It's very hard to distinguish characters
because they're all white boys singing about.
They all have a similar sort of range to them, at least from my ear. And it's hard to even tell how many characters there are, like, just from the singing. So obviously a staged version would probably have a different feel. We did not watch a version of this show, sadly, because it's kind of hard to find, I would assume. So we listened to two different versions of it, and really in both versions, for me, it was kind of tough to tell characters apart just through the songs.
Thankfully, I was following along with Sondheim and his notes, and they give it like a little description at the start of every one. Like, here's what's going on in this song, and here's Sondheim's response to this song, which is very good in contextualizing, and I still struggled with it. And also, the plot is not very plotty, so this musical isn't helped by the numbers.
Also, a lot of the characters like just aren't really involved in the plot as heavily as like they probably should be. Like there's Artie and Dino and Ted, and I could not tell you who they are.
Well, I think that's because Sondheim was trying something that I don't think worked. So his big thing was like, I was going to make the first Broadway show without an ensemble where every character was named. But in doing that, it kind of makes them all pointless.
Yeah.
It makes it less effective.
Yeah, that feels like a I'm breaking the rules for no reason type thing that, like, a lot of like newcomers to an art form will try. Like, I see a rule, I'm just going to break it, and it's just like, well,
I want a film where every 180-degree rule is broken.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like breaking the 180-degree rule the first time. Like, I'm so rebellious, and like everyone breaks the 180-degree rule sometimes. Like, it's just a thing.
Yeah, but you gotta know when to do it, and this is not when to do it, because then it just becomes nonsense, gibberish.
Yeah, and I think musicals with large number of characters I'm pretty openly critical of, because it's fucking hard to tell characters apart, you know? It just is. Like, you have a bunch of dudes up on a stage, and sometimes it's hard to tell who's who.
Especially when they're all white.
So, especially when they're all white men.
I was talking to someone recently about diversity. I was talking to Miranda yesterday. She brought up The Acolyte, and she jokingly was like, what do you feel about The Acolyte? Is it woke garbage? And, and I'm like, I'm so grateful for diversity in most media now. It is one of the best things, because I'm watching films from like the mid-20th century, and I'm getting all these motherfuckers confused with each other. All these white boys look the same.
Dude, early, like, I don't even know how you watched movies in the 50s or the 40s or whatever. Everyone is just a white dude with a suit.
Yeah, and they're all named John, and it's like...
Who the fuck is who?
With all the love in the world to the people that love Mad Men, I'm getting all these motherfuckers confused with each other.
Like, I know who John Hamm is, but then you lose me.
All these other honkies are just gonna blend together.
Like, you gotta give them something.
Yeah.
Just a distinct, like, pin or something that they wear. Anything.
Like an outfit they like to wear, an accessory they always have on.
One of them has pinstripes or something.
One
like,
of them just refuses to wear a tie. Like, give me something.
Like, if they are not a movie star, they're nobody to me. So these people that are like, diversity, I'm like, thank you, diversity. I know this person is different from this person. I welcome it so much. Please.
I'm also very thankful that show made people realize that Manny Jacinto is hot, because as a Good Place fan, I've known that shit for years. So like, catch up.
I love the Good Place.
I love that Jess is in favor of diversity, but for purely practical reasons.
Not for representation, but so he can tell the white boys apart.
I mean, there's obvious reasons that don't need to be elaborated on for why diversity is good, but as a practical reason, these fucking racists aren't seeing the value.
Hear me out. Look how different these characters look. Now I can tell.
Yay!
Okay, what is the difference between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, really?
The hair. The hair is different.
It is the hair.
It's the hair. That's how you identify them.
That's it.
One of them has a rat tail, one of them has long flowing hair.
Yeah. Although if they were both wearing suits and had short hair,
I don't know who either of them are.
They're both like weirdly British, despite neither of them being British in real life.
Yeah, well, Udberger's Scottish and his accent's too thick, so it's like, just be British.
And fucking Liam Neeson's Irish.
Yeah, but be British.
Can we talk about Love is a Bond?
I'm smart as a fox, with bonds and with stocks. I've cornered wheat, alfalfa, and rye, but now I'm tired of that hue and cry. Consolidated love is all I buy. When put to the test, I like to invest, but I won't be a great financier. Love's the stock I like, it's free and clear, and it'll be blue chip if you chip in with me, my dear. Love's a bond that's pure, its dividends are sure. This bond, if you get it, is stable, and yet it will grow if you let it mature. And darling, have you heard the market spiraling like a bird? As AT&T will go up and up we will, 'cause this new love of ours is gilt edge preferred.
I think this song is interesting because it is the beginning of realizing that this entire show is about stock bros. And for some reason, there's an entire song about how stocks and bonds are what love is or something. It's like a love metaphor using the stock market.
Can I read you the lyrics? Because this song is so short.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm
just gonna read it as beat poetry real quick. I'm sure this is as Sondheim intended.
Let me get the bongos.
Yeah, put the bongos in the back.
Love's a bond that's pure. Its dividends are sure. This bond, if you get it, is stable, and yet it will grow if you let it mature. And darling, have you heard? The market's spiraling like a bird. As AT&T will go up and up, we will. For this new love of ours is gilt edge preferred.
Dub my snapping, Andrew. I can't snap my fingers.
I do want to say this is the amateurish kind of thing that Sondheim talks about, where he like has a stanza that is like half a phrase instead of completing the phrase in the, like the bond, if you get it, is stable, and yet it will grow. Instead of yet it will grow, it's yet it will grow. Where I think it works very poorly there, but in a song like Sorry Guys, So Many People, it worked brilliantly, and this is like the one that became a hit. If you don't mind me segueing to that, riding there on my segue.
Go for it.
So many people in the world don't know what they've missed. They'd never believe such joy could exist. And if they tell us it's a thing we'll outgrow, they're jealous as they can be. That with so many people in the world, you love me.
So many people in the world don't know what they've missed. They never believe such joy could exist. And if they tell us it's a thing we'll outgrow, they're jealous as they can be. That
With so many people in the world, you love me.
This song is beautiful. It has been sung by everyone from Laura Benanti to Mandy Patinkin, and every time it hits me right in the feels. I do not like it in the context of this musical where a man is scamming a woman, but it's just about two people discovering they love each other. It's great. Specifically, like, it's about someone that's like, I thought I was materialistic, but goddamn it, fell in love with this poor person anyway. That really reads to me. Like, and then in the context of this show, it is about materialistic things in the end.
Yeah, the context here does sort of remove any actual like emotional value that this song has, but
Yeah, it's like you just found out your boyfriend just like fucked you over completely. It's like, oh, I love him anyway. It's like, okay, girl, you deserve better.
Like, I don't know. I really love this song, but man, I don't know if it lost a point or two knowing the context of the story, but man, it's still removed from the context. This song is beautiful, but let's talk about the not ending a phrase properly, which is what Sondheim hates, which is, I said the man for me should have a castle, a man of means he'd be, a man of fame, but then I met a man who had an any without a penny to his name, where they all just kind of feel like half thoughts.
So why do you think it works here but doesn't work in Love's a Bond? And is it because the Love's a Bond is just a terrible song about stocks? It's all stock puns. I'm sorry, it's all stock puns.
Yeah,
I think because here it feels like someone that's discovering they're in love with someone, so they're kind of putting the pieces together, where there it reads as amateurish because all the punchlines hit at the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, also, if you get Audra McDonald to sing anything, it's going to sound beautiful. So, like, Audra McDonald could, like, spit in my face and I'd thank her. So.
You're not wrong. And
she
I
would never sing Love's a Bond, though.
No, she wouldn't sing Love's a Bond.
Is Love's a Bond the worst Sondheim song?
The worst Sondheim song is probably in the bottom of his waist bin, and we'll never see
Yeah,
it.
probably. Yeah, the best part about Love Zubon is Genius doesn't even know who sings it. Like, they can't figure it out. It just says vocalist.
So, Andrew, there are those famous Sondheim rankings that we look at, like the one from the Fundamentals, the Mark Robson writes, the Sondheim musicals ranked. Where do you think Saturday Night falls on them? I know we haven't touched your ranking yet.
I'm going to say it's probably in the bottom 5 or 6, but it's not the bottom one.
I want to say the middle.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna. Saturday Night is almost always above Passion, and that pisses me off a lot more than it should.
Wait, don't you love Passion?
Passion is top 4 for me.
I was gonna say, I thought you really loved Passion.
But I love Passion so much, but okay. This one from Mark Robson's writes, it is Roadshow, Passion, The Frogs, then Saturday Night.
This is above The Frogs?
Yeah, apparently. And then for the Fundamentals, it is Passion as the last one. Wrong. Bounce, then Saturday Night.
Bounce, but not Roadshow? What is it?
Bounce and Roadshow are the same show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's only ever been known as Roadshow, though, I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Yeah. And then we have Do I Hear a Waltz? And this is from Ranker.com. Do I Hear a Waltz? Roadshow, then Saturday Night, then The Frogs. At least Ranker.
The Frogs is so disrespected.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
I feel like The Frogs should be higher, and I haven't even seen The Frogs.
Passion definitely does belong near the bottom.
You're
That's
fucking
fine.
wrong. And you're stupid
Jess,
too.
can you send me a copy of The Frogs? This is unrelated.
I will send you a copy of The Frogs.
Please do. I need to watch.
But the Passion is top 4 for me. Okay, back to Here We Are.
Okay.
It is so fascinating to me because Passion is really the last Broadway show Sondheim ever did, that premiered on Broadway. And Here We Are feels so much like Passion musically. I hear pieces that I'm like, he just stole that from Passion. And I don't get that much. So he's referencing a lot of It is Merrily and Passion, and that is Here We Are.
So he's took 2 of his shows that didn't do well and combined them?
Yes.
Amazing.
What a genius move.
That's
brilliant
power.
Man.
But fascinatingly, I think for you two specifically, you will probably like Here We Are better than either of those shows.
I have not seen either, so I will not have an opinion. But
you maybe should watch Passion before that.
Maybe you should send me a bunch of Sondheim links before we record this episode.
I will.
I did not dislike Merrily,
You didn't.
but I do remember not liking Passion that much.
I think the ideas in Here We Are so profound and so weird that you will be like, okay, no matter what, I'm into this. Musically, I think you'll be like, why is he doing this?
All right, we're going to have to cover. I mean, we're covering it
covering it next
2 weeks, I think.
The next
2 weeks.
Next recording session.
I do want to talk a little bit about What More Do I Need, which I also think is a really good song. It is the penultimate number. I would call it the 11 o'clock number of this show, which I think is neat. What did you guys think of it? Did it latch onto you?
Once I hated this city, now it can't get me down. Slushy, humid, and gritty, what a pretty town. What thought I could be duller, more depressing, less gay. Now my favorite color is gray. A wall of rain as it turns to sleet, the lack of sun on a one-way street. I love the grime all the time, and what more do I need? My window pane has a lovely
I think it would have latched onto me more if I understood where we were in the story necessarily, like what it meant.
Yeah.
Like to the people singing it. But I do remember liking this song. Yes.
Yeah.
It is kind of the final number because really after this is just it's
A
one
reprise.
wonderful day
It's a
again.
repeat of the
Yeah.
first song.
I don't think I disliked it. I don't really think I formed a very strong opinion about it, sadly, so I don't have much to say.
Yeah, it was
weirdly,
nice.
it weirdly feels like a payoff to a show we didn't see.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it, I suppose.
Which is also how I feel about so many people in the world, which is this, like, let me read the opening lines. Once I hated the city, now it can't get me down. Slushy, humid, and gritty. What a pretty town. If it's a love letter to New York, and I don't feel like that's what this show is.
No, it's a love letter to the stock market.
Yeah, it's
Money,
this
baby.
show is about the stock market. It's about Wall Street, baby.
About
What more do we
making money
need?
the dirty way.
No, I mean, yeah, I think he just wanted a way to close it out.
Yeah.
Something. It's a very kind of. It's a story where not much happens.
Yeah. It's like he's like, I think he fucks up and then it's like, oh, we'll just live in Brooklyn. We'll figure it out. It's like, okay.
It does bring up one of the last sins Sondheim makes of his own work as, a storytelling sin. It is the use of the word aeroplane in this song.
He just doesn't like
He
it.
doesn't like the word aeroplane.
Well, let me tell you his exact quote. One last sin. It's a small sin. It's small and infrequent, but a sin nonetheless. Adding needed syllables, as in aeroplane, I justified to myself that this is the way the word was still being spelled in the 20s. Even if it weren't such a flimsy excuse, each syllable has an equal musical value, so that we hear the long O instead of the short one, aeroplane, instead of aeroplane, as it's pronounced in real life. He just feels like he was using it as a crutch.
You know?
He's right. I'm gonna go out here. I'm actually gonna go out and say, on this nitpick of his own work, he's actually completely correct. Like that is a terrible justification. It's yeah.
It does remind me of that one scene of the documentary now, like parody of the company doc, where he's like the fake John Mulaney Stephen Sondheim was like telling Renee Elsgulsbury how to pronounce a word with more syllables.
You are saying ruined. It is ruined.
Yes.
You've been doing it the entire run and it's made me angry, so don't do it again.
Great episode.
10 out of 10, great episode. Anytime we're making fun of Sondheim, that show's great. Speaking of greatness, what is our overall thoughts on Saturday? Actually, that's a lie. Andrew, what is your overall thoughts on Saturday Night, your cheese rating, and where it ranks in your Sondheim ranking?
All right. So if you have never seen our show, which I mean, holy shit, we're like almost 300 episodes in. We're actually more than 300 episodes in, but we
cheated.
We're cheating.
We cheated because I had to have surgery and I didn't want to have to rebrand during a surgical event.
But our rating system is A through D. I don't do any S tier or F tier or anything like that. A is the best and D is the worst, and it's rated in with itself. So these are only rated against each other. We're not rating this against everything that exists or anything of that sort, or any sort of like objective rating or anything like that. This is purely rated against itself, and it's my own opinions. In A tier, we have Sweeney Todd, the Mama Rose musical, Into the Woods, and oh my goodness,
a Little Night
Music.
Little Night Music, right? That one was good. In B, we have Follies, Sunday in the Park with George, The Frogs, Merrily We Roll Along, West Side Story, Roadshow, and Company.
I still think Roadshow's too high, but whatever.
I like Roadshow. I don't know. I thought it was fun.
I kind of like Roadshow too, yeah.
In C, we have Assassins. Funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Oh boy, this is Anyone Can Whistle.
Yeah.
Pacific Overtures, Passion, And then in D, we have Evening Primrose and Do I Hear a Waltz?
What a list. Like, truly, I feel like I've argued with you over this, but man, I can't believe that's it. I can't believe we're there.
We are, well, before I do anything here, I think we have to give overall thoughts on this and cheese rating for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, my overall thoughts is it doesn't feel like a Sondheim show. It doesn't feel like this feels like a show that we would talk about and then 2 weeks later I would completely forget about and we would never bring up ever again.
Like, Do I Hear a Waltz?
This is like the type of show where it's just like, you know, it's nothing. It's like, okay, well, whatever. You know, we talked about it and we, you know, that's it. There's a few standout songs and you can see the Sondheim, like, writing style and lyricism starting to form, but the man himself has a lot of criticisms of this piece, and I think a lot of them are valid. And there's too many fucking characters. I can't follow this shit. Like, one main character, please. One main character, and then that. I'm sorry,
but Andrew, it's the first musical without an ensemble.
We learned musicals need ensembles.
Hopefully the only one as well.
You know that's not true. Come on.
I know that's not true,
Yeah,
but I'd love it if it was. I would really love if it was.
Like the last 5 years had 2 actors. Come on.
When the movie had more than 2 actors.
So we are gonna give this. It's like a Brooklyn pizza, a slice of cheese pizza, but not from one of the places that are like the best pizza. It's from like a Papa John's that happens to be in Brooklyn.
Okay. I'm gonna argue. I'm gonna push back on this.
You like Papa John's too much?
No. Papa John's is too normal and marketable. And I don't think this is either of those things. I think you should be like a Brooklyn, like, hole-in-the-wall pizza joint, but not particularly.
Those pizzas are good,
but
though.
not a good one. I think it should be one that like aped off of everyone else and are doing like the B- version of what their like great grandfather saw going on.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's an inherited Brooklyn pizza shop that is run carelessly, hopefully just to keep the fail son profitable.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I mean, I can see where you're going with that. That's fine. And then as far as where this goes, there's 2 spots that it can go. It's either the bottom of C or the top of D. And I don't know which one you would agree with.
They're both the same, really.
It's kind of the same. There's a distinction in, you know, there's a difference between being the bottom of C tier.
I think you should even out D
tier.
honestly.
We can't do this just for aesthetic reasons. If it doesn't belong in D, it doesn't belong in D.
The highs are really high, and there is no low that gets as low as either Evening Primrose or Waltz.
I agree, and for that reason, I was going to advocate for top of C, but not top of C, bottom of C.
Bottom of C works for me. I didn't mean for that to rhyme.
All right.
All right, Liz, what is your overall thoughts and your cheese rating?
It's fine. It's like it's honestly, a lot of this went through one ear out the other. I listened to this over a couple days just due to like my work schedule, so it's like a lot of it I didn't absorb fully. But I agree with Andrew. Too many goddamn characters, and I can't figure out what's going on. And the songs they're fine. It's like nothing's hugely stands out. I think So Many People is a good song. I agree with you on that, Jess. But I don't know. It's like the interesting beginnings of a man, but he's got some shit to work out, which he did successfully. But it's interesting to see where he started, I will say. So like I would check it out just to kind of see where it started from. I don't know how to review this without saying it's fine and then moving on. So
I say, just give it the cheese rating because I'm gonna ape off of what you're saying a lot.
Sounds good. I'm going to give this a bacon, egg, and cheese from a mediocre bodega in Brooklyn. A bodega that's like, okay, the cheese is kind of solid and the egg is overcooked, but like, it's decent.
That's fair enough. I am. So, I think this is a nice little fossil of what could have been. What could have been a start to a career, and what could have been a much more melodic, much more pretty, much less. Because this is a wholly different world than West Side Story, and a wholly different world than Forum, which was his first music and lyrics job. And I think that this is an alternate universe Sondheim, where he had to fight less to get out there and was just kind of doing things from a childhood age, which he was, but in a different way. I think you should really only check this out as an artifact and not as a piece. And I think that's kind of how Sondheim, like, it's a neat, interesting piece of my lore, but don't think of it as my most proud work. But the songs that work really work for me. Really work. Removed from this. And as all that, I am giving this milk that's on the pot, but was not stirred enough to become cheese, and just kind of left there. It's not even cheese yet. It's not fully formed. It is half formed. A Quasimodo, you might say. And yeah, that's our penultimate Sondheim episode. We got one episode left before our big finale, guys. Our Here We Are finale.
Can I argue with you for 1 second? All right. I want to argue about alternate universe Sondheim where this got released. I'm gonna put out my theory that it wouldn't have changed much. I think where Sondheim became Sondheim was nothing in his very early career. What really changed it was that collaboration that he did with Rodgers from Rodgers and Hammerstein, and that's the turning point. That's what matters.
Now, why?
Because I think that's where he decided that he was not going to ever allow himself to not do the music and the lyrics ever again. And I think that collaboration, that mess, was, I think, what he was reacting to with all of his future work, I think.
I can agree to a certain point. I can see that that's definitely something he was trying, but he was doing so much good work before that. Remember, Do I Hear a Waltz was 1965, and West Side Story is 1957. West Side Story, Mama Rose, Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Anyone Can Whistle, all predate Do I Hear a Waltz.
But the peak of his career was after that, though.
Yes. Do I Hear a Waltz? He immediately goes into Company, his biggest hit, then Follies, a flop. Little Night Music, his biggest hit. The Frogs, never released. Pacific Overtures, audacious. Sweeney Todd, Merrily, and then that is the end of his peak. And then he comes back many years later, Sunday Park with George, Into the Woods, Assassins, and Passion, his second peak, in my opinion. His new collaborators.
I think I would contend that maybe his very early career would change if this had actually happened, but that collaboration, I think, would happen either way because his mentor was Hammerstein.
Yes.
Or Hammerstein.
Yep,
I don't know how it's actually pronounced.
It's been pronounced both ways by the man himself. So it's equally confusing.
So I think that collaboration would have happened either way, and his peak would have happened the same either way.
Yes, I can see that argument, but truly, I don't believe Sondheim was born until Anyone Can Whistle flopped. I think that flop, despite that show having some incredible numbers and being pretty good, like if you remember that one, Simple is like the most Sondheim song ever, and that's the first time you get a taste of what he really can do. And he never let that go after that. And you don't see any of that in this one or Forum or really even West Side Story, Mama Rose. So I think that I think it's right there, and that failure, and then he kind of licks his wounds and does Do I Hear a Waltz? And that fails even worse.
I guess I'd love to hear other people's theories about alternate universe Sondheim.
Tell us your theories about alternate timeline Sondheim.
Does he have a sex dungeon in that one?
Yeah.
Also, what happens if The Frogs gets released?
Yeah.
You know what? We should make a film version of The Frogs. That should just be something we do.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is something that is made for us.
I think Andrew should be in it.
He should be Dionysus.
I can be Dionysus. Are you kidding me? I can sing.
He can.
A little bit.
Yeah, he can sing.
Actually sing.
He can sing.
And I'd be the one that watches in the movie theater and say, you know what? Better than Into the Woods.
Yeah.
That would be in the movie.
Yeah,
It would be somebody. You could hear somebody say, "This is better than Into the Woods."
It happens like every other scene.
George Bernard Shaw says that when he shows up. You know what? This is better than Into the Woods. And he looks at the audience.
God, I love the frogs.
Someone send me the
There's so much
frogs.
potential.
I feel so deprived.
So much potential there.
The Frogs is the Frogs is another one. Here we are is a lot like.
The Frogs is a secret gem. It's Sondheim's secret masterpiece.
I don't know.
All I'm learning is I have a ton of fucking homework to do before we watch Here We Are because I joined this podcast so late. So
You're welcome. But the Frogs is the only one that kind of addresses the audience. Okay. You know the end song of the Frogs, Andrew. Do you remember the name of it?
You're asking me a song name? No, I don't remember the name.
The last song in the Frogs is called It's Only a Play.
Yes.
And they say those words specifically, and Here We Are, and referring to the play you're watching. There is a lot of metatextual shit going on in Here We Are. If Sondheim not only commenting on musical theater, but commenting on himself. That I'm like, I have had a bubble inside myself where there's so much shit to talk about. And all the people I've seen it, like Emily and Brent, when I bring it up to them, they're like, it's just weird. I don't know how I feel about it. And I'm like, I think it's his magnum opus.
I wonder what they would say if you asked them about the Frogs.
yeah.
Emily hates the Frogs. Brent kind of is like, whatever.
See? I feel like liking the Frogs, it means something about you. It says something.
Means he has good taste.
Liz, did you listen to our episode on the Frogs? Were you with us yet?
I was not with you and I did not listen to it. But
So
I
Meryl
was involved. I was doing video stuff for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep was in the original production of The Frogs when it was in the swimming pool for Harvard University. Like, it was just like a school production, and she was...
There's a recording of it on YouTube. It's
Meryl?
awful.
It sounds terrible.
Oh, I gotta watch this. Fuck.
You can't. There's
No,
no...
you don't.
No,
You
you
don't.
don't. There's no
You can't
fixing
see
that
it.
audio.
Oh, whatever.
You can't see it, and the audio is horrible.
Okay, I'll trust.
All right. Did I give a cheese rating yet? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes and Spotify at Musicals with Cheese. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, Instagram Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese, Patreon only podcast, Patreon with Cheese. Email us at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. This show is edited by Andrew DeWolf, and he's doing a fantabulous job. A+, buddy. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform and for not kicking us off for not loving Saturday night as much. You know what? We didn't do the obvious joke.
What?
What's that?
You know, this was a live show, so technically it was Saturday Night Live. It's Saturday night with Andrew DeWolf, Liz Esten, and Jess McAnally, and here's your host, Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase.